Hey, Roxy.
Hey, James.
How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing great. You know why?
Why?
Because Creepy Kingdom has officially launched a Patreon account.
Patreon? What's Patreon?
Well, let me tell you, Patreon is a way that the listeners of the show can support us.
So, like a Kickstarter?
Not exactly. Kickstarter only is a one-time thing. On Patreon, our listeners can support us every month. And in exchange for them supporting us, we will give them special, super awesome prizes.
How much do they have to pay to support us?
They can pay whatever they want. You could pay $1 a month. You could pay $10, $100. It's up to them.
That's really cool. So, how can Creepy Kingdom fans find this Patreon thing?
Well, you could go to creepykingdom.com and check the show notes on our recent episodes, or you could go to patreon.com/creepykingdom. That's patreon.com.
I'm going to go check it out right now.
Me too.
Monster Movie Media presents.
Welcome to Creepy Kingdom, a podcast all about the creepiness and spookiness of the Disney theme parks, films, and beyond. I'm your host, Mr. James H. Carter II. And it's time for another Creepy Days episode, where we take a look back at some of the top Halloween events of 2016. Including a look at the Halloween events at every Disney park in the world. Coming up in this very episode, it's the finale, the final conclusion of Brittany and Grant's ultimate amazing Disney park honeymoon, Asian honeymoon, Halloween park honeymoon extravaganza. It all ends. It's all over. The final chapter is here, and we're going to the newest Disney park on Earth, Shanghai Disneyland. Hey, everybody. I'd like to welcome back to the show, not on the show, or both, I don't know, whatever, Brittany and Grant. Hello.
Hey!
And we are concluding their epic honeymoon trip to the continent of Asia to visit all of the Disney resorts. This is the third part. The first part was Tokyo. Second part was Hong Kong. And now we're going to the almighty Shanghai. The one that I would say most of us stateside Disney fans have been kind of bombarded with as it just opened, and, you know, they got to find something to put on the Disney Parks blog, so they kept, teasing us with rides that we'll never get to ride. But you said, nope, we're going. You can't keep us out.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is one for the ages right here.
This was a learning experience, for sure.
So, I guess the way to start this one off is, I will say that when you get into Shanghai, you do need to have a visa, unlike everywhere else. And when I said that this trip can be affordable, this is the one part that I kind of fibbed about. To get a visa, you do have to spend an additional, I think it was $270 a person for. So it was $540. There are ways to do it cheaper, but we did go through a service that guaranteed it was right. And you have to fill out paperwork stating you have to type up a letter of what you do for work, where exactly you're going, what your reasoning for going here is. Because once you're in, Hong Kong and China are separate entities, even though they're the same. It's kind of like Puerto Rico in the United States.
Oh, okay.
If you're going there, you really have to put in a lot of work. You have to where your father was born and the hospital he was born, where your mom was born, how long you're there, what hotel you're at, what airline you're at, what time you're leaving, what your purpose of it is, and they could deny you for any reason. And this is where it gets tricky because you have to book your plane ticket beforehand, and that visa is only good for 90 days. So you're really hoping.
Wow.
Yeah. What you're hoping, because they don't want people staying in longer. Like China, they're still trying to figure out the whole tourist market, I guess.
Yeah. The visa we have, it is a page now permanently in both our passports. We have it. It is a 10-year multi-entry. So we do not have to reapply for a visa if in 5 years we want to go back.
Yeah, we paid a little bit more so we could have that for the option. But you can spend only a maximum of, I think, 30 days at a time or 90 days at a time going in there. And you have to leave. Not saying I'm going to go there for 90 days, but it's very intensive. And it's kind of scary having to go, well, I hope that I filled this thing out correctly because this hotel room is paid for. This plane ticket's paid for. And if this gets denied, we have to figure out a lot more stuff to do in Hong Kong then. So,
we went through a service, and they're not out to deny anybody. Basically, if you're not a felon, if you're not fleeing the law, and if you can fill out a piece of paper correctly, and that's why you go through an agency, because the agency will look at it, and then they'll call you and say, you forgot to check box number 26A. We're emailing it back to you.
Okay.
So, I mean, what happens, the only part, and this is the part that makes me nervous, you have to send your passport to them. This is another reason we went through an agency, because they also guarantee the safe passage and return of your passport.
Wow.
That way, should the passport get lost in the mail, this agency is going to expedite your replacement passport, which you need to leave the country. So you send them your original passport. Your passport comes back with a page inserted inside of it that is your visa. That's what they look like. That's what they're going to look at when you get to China. I believe if you're on like an extended layover of like less than 72 hours, you do not have to get the visa, but then you run into the very tricky, well, you better be in and out of that country and not by any chance be stopped by police or things like that. Because hypothetically, you can have a layover in China.
Right.
And it could be an overnight or a 24-hour. We did actually meet some Americans in Shanghai who were on a 36-hour layover from California. They had a 36-hour layover in Shanghai on their way to Tokyo Disney. So guess what they did with their layover?
Nice.
So you can do that without the visa if you want to rush, or if you are literally, I'm going to Shanghai Disney for 2 days and getting out.
Right.
But like I said, you're expected to carry your passport on you at all times with this page in it. That way, if ever, for any reason, you are stopped by police or have to prove who you are, that's what they want to see. They don't, and this is what makes me nervous, they don't want a copy of your passport. They want your original passport on you at all times. Well, it rained one of our days in Shanghai, and our passports are water damaged now because you had to carry your original passport. So, not the end of the world, but that is something to know. This is a trip you do have to plan in advance.
Yeah, if you're doing Shanghai or going into any part of mainland China, it is a lot more that you do have to kind of really figure that out. And you can do the visa itself, and it's like an $80 fee if you try doing it yourself. But it's more, to me, it's worth it to avoid having that, paying them and then having them deny it and send it back, and they keep your money. When things are this tight, where you can't get, or I should have said that you can't get your visa until it's 90 days before your trip. So you're not able to get it like a year ahead going, well, I got it for 10 years. They need to know your exact date of entry. So there was a tight time frame that we had to follow.
That's very stressful. That's, jeez.
But at least the nice thing is should we choose to go back, we've got it. And it's in our passport until basically we timed it really well that our passports are going to expire within 2 months of the Chinese visa. Another thing just to note that I did read up, if you do get a Chinese visa and say your passport expires in 4 years and you have a 10-year visa, your visa from your old passport is still valid. You just have to carry both passports with you if you were going back to China.
Yeah.
So don't worry if you're planning this and you know your passport's going to expire, you can still do a multi-entry.
Yeah, it's almost like it makes you want to go back there another time within the 10 years just so you don't just because you did all this work to get it.
Right.
So anyway, you get there and the first thing you notice is it's a lot more serious of an attitude. Like there are big signs saying, no photography inside this part of the airport. And like there are guards holding big guns, like watching you. Like every little thing you do. It's kind of like what you've heard is kind of true, where it's very much a communist nation, meaning, they're under a lot of strict rules by their government. And it's very intimidating, and you're like, I am not going to do anything shaky right now or any quick movements. I'm just going to, I'm a pretty animated guy in general, and it was like, I'm just going to kind of stand still and enjoy it. And said, okay, well, let's get on to the Wi-Fi here in Shanghai. And there is a thing called the Great Firewall of China. They do not allow Google. They do not allow Facebook. You are not allowed on any of those sites. They are being operated, but it got really difficult. And like, if you are in the citizens group, and I was posting, fun photos throughout the time as they pertained, there was silence from me because I was unable to get onto Facebook because it was blocked. And even when we were able to get any sort of Wi-Fi, the reception was so horrific that we weren't able to accomplish anything.
Wow.
Yeah. To get an email out took me like 15 minutes to send an email.
So
it was slow. It was not a secure, not a strong signal. I did find out, of course, from people in line with us at the airport the day we were leaving, there is a legal route for Americans to access Google and Facebook within China. Tech savvy, a VPN network. You can download an American VPN network to your device. That basically tells the Great Firewall of China, I'm an American and need to access this, and it will let you through. A word of caution that we learned a very valuable lesson. There is no Google Maps in China. And even if you thought ahead and you printed out all your Google Maps directions, Google Maps has no access to China. Their maps are kind of a guess of where they think things are. You may go on some very interesting scenic tours of Shanghai looking for what you meant to find.
Yeah, like they would take us, like they fortunately got us to our hotel. But after that, like they took us to some really sketchy areas. And, I'll just say that it was incredibly frustrating. And if you're going there and you're not necessarily the most tech savvy person, be prepared to be cut off from your family and friends for the time that you're in mainland China. Whereas Hong Kong, you can still access all these things. So just, it was something that would have been nice to have given warning to people and say, hey, you're not going to hear from us. Not that anybody was expecting to really be hearing from us on our honeymoon, but you kind of get the point. Like, if you're going there, you're not going to be able to say, hey, I made it safely in Shanghai. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
like I said, it took me 15 minutes to send an email to my mom to just say, hey, we're here. By the way, no Facebook, no Google, no Twitter, no Instagram, blah, blah, blah. You get the picture. The other thing I noticed, a lot of places have Wi-Fi. Tokyo, I could get on Wi-Fi in Disney. Hong Kong, I could get on Wi-Fi in Disney and all around Hong Kong. Shanghai has a lot of Wi-Fi, and I thought, well, at least I can get on the Wi-Fi in different places because our hotel Wi-Fi was horrible. The only way to get on Wi-Fi in China is if they text you a code to your phone. If you are in airplane mode, you cannot get on their Wi-Fi in China.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we rode airplane mode the whole time because we didn't want to pay all the fees for traveling abroad, and then that would be when I'd get some stupid, call from somebody saying I won a cruise. That was a lucky day, or it was also political season, so I was getting a bunch of political phone calls, saying,
"Oh yeah,
remember to vote for this person," and it's like that would have cost us so much money. So we were fine, but it was just like kind of a shock. Now, getting to the actual people of Shanghai, everybody is very much for themselves. So you will be pushed. You will be kind of leered at. The spitting is a lot worse there than Hong Kong. The littering was worse there than Hong Kong. You get on a subway. We almost got separated on several occasions because they cram, I'd say, 600 people into one of those subway cars. Like, you just, filling like sardines. And everybody enters and exits at the same time. And she almost got trampled at some points.
Oh.
And it's really difficult to get in and out. And whereas in, Tokyo, everybody got off and everybody got on. And that made sense. Here, they don't have that figured out. So you
just watch people slam into each other trying to get on and off the trains.
Wow.
We altered some of the stuff we were doing based on, I don't want to be on this train in downtown during morning rush hour. That doesn't sound like a good, safe idea. So we did alter kind of what we were doing in our scheduling a little bit based on that.
And then if you're on a train that happens to be a little emptier, people are going to hand their these flyers to you left and right, and they trash the train. So it's very insane, and it's something that we can kind of laugh about a little bit now, how crazy it was. But during the time, it's actually very scary and very intense because people are pushy and shovey, and it's incredibly aggressive. Mm-hmm. So, and that's another thing. Like, if you were to stay at the two Shanghai Disney hotels, you're going to be spending $300 or $400 a night. So it's also that trade-off of, do I spend $40 a night, which, by the way, we actually had a much bigger hotel room, just no windows this time.
Our bathroom in the hotel in Shanghai was bigger than our room in Hong Kong.
Wow.
So there you are. We finally found the hotel room. It had no windows because only the front of the building had windows because the back of it was against another building and the sides were against other buildings. So only 1/4 of the rooms had the opportunity to have a window.
So if you're independently wealthy, I would say, yeah, definitely go and stay at one of their hotels if you can afford it. But if you're like, I'm just going because I want to get there, you're going to have to realize that Shanghai is going to be frightening compared to everywhere else that you have been on this journey.
Yeah.
It's just, that's the way it is. I would say if you are over 60 or so, do not, or if you're in bad, worse physical shape, or you have some sort of issue, do not take the subway and just buckle up and buy.
If you have little kids, I would not take. I saw very few children on the subway.
Yeah, people get crushed, and there are injuries left and right of people trying to get on the train.
Yeah, people jumping through the doors as they're closing and stuff. Now, we stayed more in the downtown Shanghai area because we were doing things outside of Disney as well.
Okay.
I would say for someone going, maybe if you don't want to stay on property, start looking at 3 or 4 train stops away from Shanghai Disney. I did on the way in see a Marriott actually was one of the ones I remember seeing. That was a couple train stops away, but not too far away that you can probably find something that's going to put you on a less busy train route, fewer connections, and avoiding the downtown area, and you would probably be fine. If we do choose to go back, that's probably what our game plan is going to be. Stay closer to the park. We had to do, I think, 2 connections to get to our hotel.
Yeah, and each connection got more and more scary. You know, like especially, you know, this was another park where, I mean, their hours I think were like they opened up at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. They opened up earlier, but they did close at 8 because the last train stopped running at 10 because they still have to get all the employees out of there. So, you know, it's not like they can close at 10 o'clock and say, you know, or 9 o'clock and you get on the last train. They have to get all the cast members heading back home.
They, again, like Hong Kong, they have their own train station. It was added on to one of their routes. It's not its own train, but it is the end of the line on one of the routes. Actually ends at Shanghai Disney. In Shanghai, different than both Tokyo and Hong Kong, you go through airport screening to get on and off the trains. They have an X-ray machine for your bags. You also have, I would almost say, American-level security to get into Shanghai Disney, where Hong Kong and Tokyo had minimal security.
So
you have the metal detectors here. You have uniformed officers, not Disney security. Uniformed officers doing the bag check.
And these uniformed officers are also present throughout the park, which is kind of weird when you see all these like police officers just walking around and like kind of standing guard everywhere. It's kind of intimidating.
Yeah.
In the Disney parks, you would see Disney security and not think twice. Shanghai is using actual police officers in lieu of quote-unquote Disney security. And having seen a couple incidents in the park that we'll talk about, I understand why they've made that choice. And to me, that makes better sense than, you know, you're just thinking, oh, it's just a security officer. Here it's a police officer, and I think there's a level of respect with the Chinese toward police officers that I don't think they display toward security, so to speak. We'll kind of elaborate on that later when some incidents came up, but I guess we'll go through and where do you want to start in the park?
Well, what happens is when you get out and you get into where Shanghai Disney is, you got to realize that they have almost the same amount of land as Disney World does.
A Magic Kingdom or the whole Disney World?
No, the whole Disney World. They have room for 4 or 5 more parks there easily.
They've got empty land.
They bought a ton of land. Their goal is to make this Disney World Part 2. So they, that's why they invested so heavily into it. Like, you know, they have their own giant, you know, they have like a lake that takes you to where they have a boat that takes you to the hotel where we ate at one morning. And you just notice how much land, especially when you're on the subway, you can see how much land they have. And it's monstrous. It is Disney World Part 2. And when you get into the park and you see the castle, if you are familiar with Epcot, if you picture, like, if after you've passed the giant ball, Spaceship Earth, and where the back part of, you know, like where America is, you know, and how there's that whole Reflection Lake Pond area?
Yeah.
Where, like, that circle is the land. The distance from where that ball is to where America is the distance from their version of Main Street to the castle is. This park is monstrous. And they don't have Main Street. They have something called Mickey Avenue because they realized that, you know, 1910, 1920 Americana doesn't really work for China. And on top of that, they are still trying to introduce the characters of Mickey Mouse and all them to China. Those characters have only been introduced relatively recently, and people aren't really that familiar with them yet.
It's my understanding that before Shanghai Disney became a reality, before they started building it, your knowledge in China of Disney was either knockoff or counterfeit Disney product, or you went to Hong Kong and went to Disney. They didn't have, like, you can go into clothing stores here and see Disney logo clothing. We have a Disney store in our mall.
Right.
They have the world's largest Disney store, but it's just as new as the park. It's only a couple years older.
Yeah, the world's largest Disney store actually opened up 1 year ago just to try to get people excited for this park because they put so much work and money into it, and every penny shows. And I'm going to get onto my soapbox really quick that they actually started construction on this park. I looked in the middle of 2013, and they had it open in the middle of 2016.
3 years for the whole park.
Okay, 3 years for this whole park.
That's excluding, like, the demo of the trees that was on the property and stuff like that. That was actually the building of the park was 3 years.
Yeah, so now January 7th of 2014 is when they actually started groundbreaking for Avatar at Animal Kingdom. And
wow.
We're coming up on to 3 years, and we still have no idea when the heck that thing is opening. And that's just a land with 2 rides.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes me mad that I see that they're able to do these things at such a great scale over here or over there.
Over there, yeah.
But yet over stateside, they just are completely botching it.
Yeah, start to finish for Shanghai, from groundbreaking, meaning demoing anything that was on the land, planning and everything, was 5 years. Start to finish.
Wow.
So yeah, they moved.
Yeah, demoing, putting in the whole lake, putting in all the hotels, the train system. So it is monstrous, and they are planning on expanding it. From what I've read, that they already have the next park mapped out. They have the next few phases of Shanghai Disneyland itself mapped out. So they know they're going to be very aggressive with this. So it's going to be, if you go there in 10 years, it's going to be a totally different park.
You can walk around Shanghai Disney, and it's not glaringly obvious, but you can kind of look at some areas and go, well, that's a temporary structure, or, well, I can see where that's going to become something. They just announced Toy Story Land that's in Hong Kong. A similar one is coming to Shanghai Disney. Grant and I found where it's going when we were there, because you could kind of see this wall, and in front of this wall was this, like, camouflage-colored bathroom. And I said, the backside of that's going to be the Green Army Men ride. You just wait. It's the same color. And that's where they're putting Toy Story Land. So they have it ready to very quickly keep expanding this park.
And they're also, you can tell that they're going to be building attractions in rather than out, like, meaning like over here or in California. Typically when they build a new ride, they're building outside, meaning like they're building along the edges of the park and expanding the park that way. Here they've actually left room on the inside so they can build on the inside. So I guess we'll kind of get to it. But yeah, this park is so big. We allowed 3 days for it, even though it's, new and they don't have that many rides. But,
You still, we had originally allowed for 2 full days, and then we were going to do a half day there and do something else one of the mornings. And I think we were about an hour into the park, and I was like, we got to rethink our schedule. We need that full 3rd day here, if not more.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, and you like when you go in, you have to show your visa and your passport. They check every last detail down to make sure, that you should be there. So they are not messing around with that. But anyway, so I guess walking you through it, when you go through, I'm going to take us, you're going counterclockwise because that's kind of the way that we went.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing I want to start with is rope drop will happen.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Let me explain to you what rope drop was like for us.
Okay.
People start going into the park. I ran into their equivalent of the Emporium and hid.
Whoa.
Grant tried in vain to run in the mob of people, and they run.
They don't stop you from running there.
You run.
People are trampling other people.
Really? Like literally running over people?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's why I went in the store and waited until the crowd died down. They do let people into Mickey Avenue maybe 30 minutes before park open. And people line up at the very edge as far as you can go. And why are you running? You are running to the Fast Pass kiosk. There are 4 Fast Pass kiosks in the park. They do things a little different. They're on the paper system. 2 in Fantasyland, 1 in Tomorrowland, 1 in Adventure Isle, which is their Adventureland. You go up to the computer, scan your ticket, and choose from a menu on the screen which ride you want in that land. So it's not a kiosk outside of the ride. You go to one, and Fantasyland has Mine Train, Winnie the Pooh, Peter Pan's Flight. As your options, you select one. Tomorrowland has Tron and Buzz Lightyear. You select one. Adventure Isle, which is the most popular Fast Pass area, has Soarin' Over the Horizon and the Roaring Rapids. So our game plan was Grant was going to grab the tickets and run to the Adventure Isle Fast Pass kiosk to try to get one of the rides.
Because, we don't have, we didn't have like working cell phones.
Right.
So I basically said, you are going to meet me over here. Don't worry, I will be the white person. So
It worked.
I will be the person that's really tall compared to everybody.
So we had this plan, and I waited until the mob died down, until I felt comfortable walking over there. I get there, and there is poor, dejected Grant. It didn't work. The Soarin' Fast Pass was gone in about 20 minutes.
Wow.
So you're thinking from 9 to 7, Soarin' is open, and in 20 minutes it has no Fast Passes left, and you cannot make Fast Passes in advance. So you figure out in your head what the line looks like. I'll give you a hint. It goes around the kiosk and around the kiosk and around Adventure Isle, and it's looping around, and the cast members cannot keep it controlled. So we kind of said, forget it. Let's just get in the standby line for the Roaring Rapids, because everyone and their mother, brother, and sister are in the Fast Pass line. So we get in the Roaring Rapids line. Oh, a 20-minute wait. Not bad. Now, something we forgot to mention on the subway. People on the subway will try to sell you Disney merchandise and ponchos for the water rides. People in line for security. When you're waiting to go through security, you're waiting to go through the ticket thing. People are getting busted by the police. Remember, they're not security, they're real police.
Yeah.
Who are trying to sell Disney merchandise and ponchos to people waiting in the security line.
And this happened in multiple spots as well, where you have people just trying to sell things out of their backpacks. And we saw people getting arrested by these people. So, like, Disney, they're having a really hard time getting this set up. And I will say that Roaring Rapids is incredibly well done, but it's incredibly jerky. There's lots of drops, and the giant crocodile creature that's inside of this mountain wasn't working. He was in Disco Yeti.
Oh, no.
He broke. And Grant's like, this park's not even 6 months open, and that guy's broken. Now, I don't know for sure. Did he break? Was he down for a day of, repair?
No. They were actually, the Roaring Rapids was actually closed 1 out of the 3 days we were there, and so is the Pirates ride, because they are not able to do full refurbs yet. They have to basically close a ride down for a day.
So, in looking at their refurb schedule, Roaring Rapids goes down 1 day a week. And they work on, I guess, what they can do in 1 day. Pirates has like 1 day every couple weeks. They take it down. And my guess is
Tron probably
has a day somewhere where it goes down on a schedule, because they're too new to have, a ride down for refurb completely.
Yeah, they can't just say, this will be closed for 3 weeks,
Right.
Now, I will say, at several different points in Shanghai Disney, keep in mind it opened June 16th. We were there I think October 17th. So you're looking at 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
I felt at certain points I was back at Disney World looking at things going, oh, it's time for this ride to be repainted.
Wow.
And, you get that at Disney World and you get that at Disneyland because, the ride gets closed for a couple weeks every few years. It gets its new shiny paint job. And then a year and a half from now in the Florida sun especially, some of our rides are a little bit discolored. That can't be helped. That's Florida. I'm seeing that in 4 months at Shanghai. And Winnie the Pooh ride was a particular one I saw that in. The Mine Train I saw that in.
Wow.
Things like that.
Yeah.
It's getting a lot of wear and tear. People don't know how to treat the rides right.
People are not treating the park with the respect that it deserves. They're trashing it left and right. People are carving their names into things, peeling the paint. We saw on more than one occasion people putting their kids into the flower bushes so they could use the bathroom when there are bathrooms nearby.
Wow. So you
Yeah,
you saw this firsthand.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And people are spitting left and right on everything. It almost makes you not want to go on a water ride.
Yeah. The kid next to us in line on Dumbo ducked under the rope, popped a squat right there. Now, I will say Disney maintenance was on that in 30 seconds and had spray and was digging a hole and was digging the mulch out, and they were on it. They are really working to curb this behavior.
But the thing is that this is what they're taught. Like, this is their standard behavior.
Really?
It's a bodily function. I can do this. I have to use the bathroom, so I'm going to go right here. And that's how the standard of that is. The other aspect that nobody seems to grasp is the concept of a line. So, we'll stand in line, and it doesn't look very far. And then you will get pushed by a group of 8 people that decide that they don't want to wait in line and they want to just go to the front, and they get their way there. Or they have one friend that's waiting all the way up front, and people are just pushing you out of the way going, I'm going to go here, and I'm going to push here. And
so
we did see Disney actually catch several of these people doing this and make them wait for a long time. But they are having a real hard time combating the aspect of the crowds, just because here people are so conditioned to, I wait in line. I don't destroy the park I paid all the money to get into.
I walk to get to the Fast Pass line. I walk to the attraction.
Yeah.
If we had a spot for the parade, people decided that they wanted Brittany's spot, and they climbed all over her and pushed her out of the way. And it's well, hold on. She sat here for 45 minutes for this spot, and here you are getting incredibly physically aggressive with us. And people get physically aggressive there because from what I've gathered online after is they have the mentality of, I paid for this. I should be able to do whatever I want with it because it's mine.
Again, back to the everyman for themselves, like on the subway. I noticed this a few different times. Well, I want to be here. I'm going to be here. If you were here first, well, tough.
No.
This is the only park I've ever seen a cast member lay hands on a guest and physically push a guest back. And this is why I believe they have uniformed officers. This has nothing to do with, trying to be intimidating. I feel they needed that presence more than they needed a Disney security guard. And we saw people who were trying to cross in front of the parade. The parade wasn't there yet, but the rope was up. And when the rope is up, common sense would dictate, don't push my kid's stroller through here. The parade is closed. And these people were indicating, again, I don't speak Chinese, but I can read the body language and the gesturing. They wanted a ride on the other side of the park. They were going to that ride. They were not going to walk around. It's right there. They're pointing at it. and the cast members having to push this guy who's trying to push the cast member out of the way with his kid's stroller to get over to the ride, and the parade is coming. So it's a 4-month-old park, and these are probably people who may or may not have ever been to a theme park before and are not exactly liking how you learn the rules.
And if you think about what we were saying about how the subway system works over there and how everybody's very pushy, every man for themselves, they're trying to apply that at a Disney park, and it doesn't work that way. You know, people are littering it, and it made us really sad where we would see, you know, at one point I saw somebody that wiped their kid's butt, and they just put it in like a statue's mouth at some point because, well, what else am I going to do with this toilet paper? And it's sad because this park is so big and so awesome and so much nicer than what we have over here, and people are just treating it like it's garbage, and it's really sad. And I get that there's a learning curve here, and that Disney is well aware of this because the reports of it that have been happening have been really bad. And, you know, we'll say that the rides that they have are better than the rides that we have here. The decorations that they have are better than than what we have here. The theming is better than what we have here. But the people are just treating it like it's, you know, like a back alley or a junkyard. And it's really, it actually, it's kind of sad, but I actually threw up that night because it stressed me out so much.
Wow.
I got back to the hotel room because it was so saddening to me seeing people getting such an awesome thing when, you know, here in Florida and especially California as well, they're building things at a snail's pace, if at all. And here they got this entirely brand new theme park with state-of-the-art attractions, and people don't even know how to people don't know how to treat it. And it's, you know, it's kind of a rough thing that, you know, it's hard because I had to talk to you about this because it's very much if you're going, be prepared to see some really crazy behavior that you have to actually witness it to see it. Like, people just saying, oh, I'm going to go and stick my gum on this other side of this bridge over this walkway where nobody's ever going to get to it. And, like, I'd have my hand on that bridge, and all of a sudden I'd feel like trash there on the other side of it. And it was really disgusting. And I know that they're trying to, you know, combat it, but it's impossible.
To Disney's credit, like I said, we saw the kid in line for Dumbo just go to the bathroom, and maintenance was on that. Cleaned the whole thing up, sprayed the whole area, removed the mulch around it. They have signs in front of every character greet at every attraction that says you must queue in line with your whole party. If for any reason you need to leave the line, please alert a cast member for help. It's in Chinese, it's in English. I was taking photos of them because I figured if someone shoved in front of me, I had that at least as my leg to stand on.
Yeah.
They are working, and these are temporary signs that have been put out. So Disney is recognizing we have some issues. We need to work on these issues. I've noticed they are putting more cast members in strategically located in the line. So corners where cutting would be easier, where someone might put a kid to go to the bathroom or something. They're putting cast members in those areas to curb that behavior.
So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And what I wound up finding out was picture if you drove 3 hours anywhere from where Shanghai Disney was.
Yeah.
You have the entire equivalent of the population of the United States within a 3-hour drive of Shanghai Disney.
Wow.
So that's how dense that area is. So imagine cramming that many people there. That's also why they are planning on building so many more parks in that area. And they did that because they have so many people that can go there. So anyway, we kind of had to go on that little side journey right there just so we wouldn't go into like the behavior we saw. And because this was pretty much in every line. And we can just kind of talk about the rides and all the happy aspects that we saw
all
there.
Right. Before we leave this, I just want to know, are people just like taking dumps like in like the streets? Like, is that like such a common thing in Shanghai?
It's in the flower bushes and stuff and off to the side. And you'd see like a little kid like pick a flower And you would think that you'd see the mom go and like go over there, and you'd think that the mom would stop the kid, and then the mom would go and pick flowers. And it was kind of like really bizarre behavior. And I'm not going to speak for everybody there because, you know, unfortunately, this is a thing where you see one bad incident out of 100 people. You're going to remember the one bad incident and not the 99 people that were polite.
Sure.
But
that's traumatizing.
there were a lot of people that you could see that were just kind of like looking at these people like, what the heck are you doing? And from what we gathered, it wasn't the people who necessarily lived in Shanghai, but like the people who lived out in the sticks, kind of like the more, God, I'm trying to find a nice way to say it, but the people who maybe
more rural,
rural population.
Rural's the new PC term for certain kind of.
I don't know how to say that without sounding like a jerk, but it's just from what I've read. This is what I've read. It's the people who are on the outskirts that really are, you know, working on the farms that are maybe used to just taking a dump wherever. But
we did walk through downtown Shanghai one evening, and we were a little lost looking for something. And Grant was about to turn down a street, and I said, "We're not going to go down that street." He's like, "Why?" I'm like, "I can see 3 people going to the bathroom in the corner over there. We're not going to walk down that street." So they're not out in the middle of the road doing this, but if there's not, you know, a big building there off to the side, side roads and stuff, yeah, they're going over to the corner, you know. So, you know, guys can go out behind the bushes or something. No, they're doing that on the sidewalk.
I will say that this is an older generation versus a younger generation thing, though. That, yes, you have the little kids using the bathroom, but it's like the grandparents and the parents putting them there. Mm-hmm. From I've heard that, and these are the older parents, like parents that had kids in their 40s and their 50s. You have the younger crowd, which is maybe more cognizant of the environment and the litter problem and that kind of stuff, and that, you know, a lot of the younger crowd, from what I've gathered, does not like the constant spitting everywhere in the parks. And it's kind of sad when you see people just spitting all over the park. It's kind of like, why are you doing this? This is sad.
Yeah, I would say, though, over 3 days, we probably saw 10. They were all under 10 going to the bathroom somewhere they shouldn't have been.
Hi guys, so it's kids. All right, let's move on from the.
Okay, yeah, let's move on
from bathroom talk.
So Roaring Rapids. Going back to Roaring Rapids, that ride itself is really cool. It's incredibly jolty. There are a lot of drops to the ride. It almost kind of reminded me of like a Splash Mountain type of layout. Mm-hmm. It's a gorgeous ride. It takes you into their big waterfall mountain. If you ever look at a photo and you see this giant light up waterfall rock, it's a gorgeous ride. It's very intense.
It's the seating like Kali River Rapids, Grizzly.
Any rapid ride where you're circling around, it's like that.
It's the seating of that. This is the only one, and I've been on a lot of these, where I've wound up sliding into the seat next to me and almost off the seat on the other side. That's how jolty this ride is.
So it is intense. It's really fun. It's a shame that one wasn't that the big animatronic centerpiece was not working properly. He was there in basically Disco Yeti format, and I was going to start singing the Bee Gees to it. Had I known. And I will say, you only go by it for about 6 seconds. It's a very quick thing. You can find video of it working in all its glory, and it's very impressive, and it's kind of sad we didn't get to see it like that. So next to it is Soaring Over the Horizon, which had a 3.5 to 4 hour wait throughout the entire day. For whatever reason, people just couldn't get enough of it, and each Soarin' is a little different because it starts and ends based on the park that you're in. Right. The ride itself is the same after that, but, you know, there's that. We didn't get to do it. I was more interested in doing it for the queue aspect to see what they did with the line. But it's like you look at this way and go, this says 210 minutes. If we tough this out, it could be a lot longer because, you know, 150 people are going to cut right in front of us constantly.
And I did notice they and they're a new park. They're still learning how to figure out the timing for the lines.
Oh, okay.
I've noticed some of the line times we'd get in one and the wait would be twice as long, and I could not imagine what that was going to be. At one point, we saw it at about an hour and a half, and within 5 minutes of being in line, it had passed 2 hours, and I was like, we can't.
Yeah, we're just like, no.
I can't wait 2.5 hours for soaring.
But next to it is something really, really cool. And if you're going, be sure to wear tennis shoes. Because we went the second day to try to do this, and they said you have to wear shoes. By the way, they speak absolutely no English at this Disney park. So the signs are all in English, but you know what? You're going to have to just follow your way based on signs, and the menus have English, but you're not going to be able to like communicate with anybody really there.
Oh, okay.
We had one server who spoke English.
Yeah, one person in one restaurant in the entire time who spoke any degree of English. So Camp Discovery, you have to wear tennis shoes. It's a ropes course where they harness you in, and you have the rope ahead of you. And this thing was intense. You have nothing to hold on to, and you're going around this entire Adventure Isle mountain with the waterfall, and you're strapped in, and there's 3 different paths that you can take at each obstacle. One which is basically I am bypassing the obstacle. Another one which is this is incredibly difficult, I'm ready to take on the world. And then the other one which is I want to feel like I did it without going all in. So it would be things like crossing a suspension bridge where it's a single rope, like where it's just one rope doing a tightrope walk around the entire thing. And if you do the middle version, you'd have things that you could hold on to. If you did the one on the left, there's nothing for you to hold on to. You're hoping that that strap is genuinely on you because you are going to plummet 20 feet to your death if this thing was to break.
No, I took the easy route for safety. There were a lot of cast members. You might not have openly seen them, but when I was waiting for like Grant to catch up at some points, because I'd be on the walkway, that was easy, you would see a cast member kind of peeking out, watching what was going on. So if you were in distress, you were probably 15 seconds away from someone who could help you.
Okay.
Now, I will say that there are 4 different trails that you can go on. They had 2 trails open, but it gives it a nice amount of rewritability. But, you know, I did the more intense ones, and there was a point where they actually had a cliffhanger around the main waterfall where if you were to slip and fall, and this path was soaked, you're on like a rock wall hanging on by the skin of your fingernails trying to navigate this like it's some action movie. And
wow,
I think like you would never see this in the States. This was something that like if you slipped the wrong way, you would really injure yourself. Even though you're on a harness, you would definitely be beaten by the waterfall.
Yeah.
I did it, but I don't think I would ever do it again. It's a long trail. It's a lot of fun. You are going to wait 2 hours for it, but I will tell everybody listening, it's 110% worth it because it's so unique.
I did notice that a few of the routes were blocked off, and it's my guess that they had a few incidents. I do expect that some parts of that are going to be refurbished. Like some of the harder level trails, you would get to the point and there'd be a block across where you couldn't go. And I'm guessing if someone fell or got hurt, they've closed them off until they can retheme it and make it a little safer. But if you want to do it and you don't want to, go slip and sliding off a waterfall, take the easy route. It's a sidewalk. You still get the same experience with a little less panic.
So, anyway, the only other thing really in that area, there's a Tarzan show, which is surprisingly awesome because it's a Chinese acrobat show where everybody's monkeys. And you're seeing people like things that OSHA over here would never allow, where people are like basically jumping from 20 feet onto cement and like using each other as human jump ropes and jumping, it's crazy. It's not creepy at all, but it is really neat. Next to that is Treasure Cove, which is the Pirates of the Caribbean land, where they have the Explorer canoe ride, where it's just like the canoes at Disneyland. It was a lot of fun. But they do have the Pirates of the Caribbean Battle for the Sunken Treasure ride, which we did do 3 times over the 3 days, and it was amazing, amazing, amazing.
All right, say no more. No, you can say a little bit more, but I don't want any spoilers on this one.
Okay.
Right.
Closest thing without a spoiler really is it's a sequel to the Pirates of the Caribbean ride that you know and love. It takes place, I'd say, 50 to 75 years after, because of the first scene, and this isn't much of anything, but you go by the jail with the dog.
Yeah.
And everybody is a skeleton, including the dog.
Whoa.
And I hesitate on telling you that, and the dog still has the key, but that's how I was able to judge it. Like, they were enough time to be in full skeleton. The flesh is eroded.
Yeah.
It's about summoning Jack Sparrow back. And I'll say it's almost a combination of if you mix Pirates of the Caribbean with Transformers ride.
From Universal.
It's with screen projections and things like that. And that's all I really want to say. It's shorter than regular Pirates of the Caribbean. Okay, Magic Kingdom's Pirates of the Caribbean is just absolutely crap compared to the Disneyland one.
Agreed. Unfortunately,
Okay.
it has a good cue. It has a good cue, but that's it. And the mermaids. I love the mermaids.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. But you go by them in 4 seconds.
Right.
This is, I would say, about the same length as the Florida version, but it's solid action packed. You are in the middle of it. The boat will go backwards, spin, go different directions than you're used to. It's really, really neat. And there is, and if you like Johnny Depp is all over this ride. So it's him in screen form and animatronic form. So yeah, he's speaking in Chinese the whole time. And the crazy thing is it's his voice coming out of it too. So like, he learned enough to be able to do this ride and film this ride.
They taught him how to sound out his Chinese. I think it's pretty much a trackless system.
Yeah, it's a trackless boat ride.
There are some parts you do connect back to a track.
But I won't really say anymore because that's such. This is such a creepy kingdom ride.
Oh,
like
boy.
This and the raft ride are the ones that if you were to go there, these would be like the two that you'd be going back and forth, and you get to ride them like twice each, and then the park would be closed.
Yeah, understand that Pirates is currently not on a fast pass. So you do have to wait in the standby. There's only one line. I think you can do single rider for it. The seating on the boats holds more people.
Yeah, the line was actually only about 20 minutes each time we did it. So
I think it holds 36 on a boat.
Yeah, so it's really neat. I will say if you're already thinking, God, I can do this trip because they've made it so it's affordable, which is kind of my goal, is to give any listener who wants to go to the Asian Disney parks and understanding that they can do this cheaply if they wanted to, or relatively cheaply with a nice tax return. Don't be dissuaded by all the crazy behavior we've mentioned in Shanghai. Just be prepared for it. It's not enough of a reason to say don't go there. I will say if you go there in 5 or 6 years, I think that it'll be all cleaned up and all figured out. But anyway, so next to that is actually Fantasyland. And they have an Alice in Wonderland maze. And
now, is this a maze where you can actually get lost in?
Yes.
Yes.
It's a Tim Burton themed one too. They have like a giant Helena Bonham Carter head in the middle of it.
Nice.
Yeah.
I feel we would have enjoyed it more. It was very crowded, and that kind of made it hard to enjoy. I feel like in the future, that's something that the crowd will thin out of, and then you'll be able to enjoy it more without 40 other people trying to trample through you.
So that's kind of neat. They do have, like a cave that you go into with the Cheshire Cat, and he causes trouble and stuff. next to that is the actual physical castle. And this castle is so monstrous. You know, you can eat it. There's a full-on restaurant in there. There's a walkthrough attraction, which is the Disney Princesses. It's a Enchanted Storybook Castle walkthrough that takes you through the story of Snow White. And there were these two dads that looked at me and kind of started laughing because the moment that the hag appeared, I started applauding really loudly, and the dads were like, "Yeah, that's what's up. You know what's going on." Like the language barrier, they knew. They kind of were in agreement that maybe Snow White needed to get what was coming to her. I'm sorry, but you know, she had. I can go into Snow White, but I'm not going to. But I actually always root for the evil queen because, you know, she's really the fairest of them all. And
that's subjective. But wasn't there supposed to be like an attraction in the castle? I remember that from
I'm still talking. We're still going.
Okay.
They have the attraction Voyage to the Crystal Grotto, which this is probably the least creepy ride ever.
Okay.
Where you get on a boat and you circle through these different areas, and it's different Disney scenes.
It reminds me of what's the one at Disneyland you go through Monstrous
Storybook Canals.
Yeah.
The idea of Storybook Canals, but a much more technologically advanced version, and it goes through mostly Princess. It does the Sorcerer's
There's Aladdin and stuff.
Aladdin, Frozen, Rapunzel, things like that.
You go through, and it's basically each thing is a fountain with a water feature, and they play like a little song with a little light show, and the sculpture comes to life, and water shoots everywhere, and you're in a boat, and there's no language required, and then, you know, something pops out at the end, like the Cheshire Cat will pop out if it was an Alice in Wonderland thing, or a Boo will come out of a chest holding a gem. But you do go in after the bulk of the ride is outside, but there is a point where you go underneath the castle, which is the Crystal Grotto, and that whole thing is a giant projection map type thing with jewels and gems and pixies and magic and stuff like that. It's very cute. It's a good family ride. I will say that this part didn't have a whole lot of family rides. It was either way little kid or more thrill. So it's a nice fit. It goes under the castle, and they have a meet and greet, and then they have, like a crystal shop there. The castle, the restaurant in the castle is so big that somebody actually took us on a tour. The one person who spoke English explained that each of the rooms was themed to a different princess, and if you look like there was a hidden aspects of the characters and the movies. And they said, oh yeah, there's 3 more dining rooms that are just waiting to be open for when we get busier that haven't been opened yet.
Oh wow.
So
yeah, we made reservations in advance. You could have walked up day of and gotten in.
Yeah, I would say avoid the expensive phone bill to China. If you don't need to do that. If you want to get in there, you can figure out a way in there. But they do have their own type of teapot ride, which is Winnie the Pooh themed. It's in honey pots, and it's and it's tough to be a bug on how you have the choir of the bugs singing the different songs.
Yeah,
it's all bees singing the Winnie the Pooh song, so that's kind of fun. They do have the Winnie the Pooh ride, same exact thing as Disneyland or Florida's. So we don't even need to go into that at all. They do have Peter Pan's Flight, and that Peter Pan ride is awesome.
Okay.
That was one of our top 3 rides. It's a bigger boat. They kind of realized that for capacity, if you can fit another row of people in that car or in the boat, it works. It's state-of-the-art animatronics. The ride is about 1.5 minutes longer. More scenes in Neverland. You have different, like Nana is flying in animatronic glory as opposed to just kind of sitting there as a static statue that's glowing. I'm sure you've been on the California version a bunch of times.
Yeah, not too much. It's always has a long wait. I'm both all the parks. I have no patience.
45-second ride with a 45-minute line.
Yeah.
So, this is a long ride, and the animatronics are actually articulated. So I would say it was nice because it felt like even if you waited a while for it, I mean, we had fast passes both times, and this was crazy, was that we were able to get fast passes for these rides for like, oh, well, it's 2 o'clock. Here's your fast pass for 2:45 for Peter Pan. Like, everybody used their fast passes for the thrill rides. Nobody used them for the things in Fantasyland. So that was kind of nice to just say, okay, well, I guess we're going to check out Peter Pan. But, if you're waiting for a while for the ride, it's still worth it. Whereas in, California and Florida, it's kind of like well, that was it. That was fun and all, but it's really short. Mm-hmm. They also have, so that's kind of what Fantasyland has. Oh, also they have Seven Dwarfs Mine Train.
So that's the same thing as Florida.
No.
Ooh.
Shanghai has what I assume was the fully intended version for Magic Kingdom. Florida's Mine Train is supposed to be longer than it is. However, they built themselves into a corner because they put in the Beast Castle, they put in Enchanted Tales with Belle, and then they put in the Voyage of the Little Mermaid, and then they tried to build the Mine Train. They had nowhere to really build the Mine Train to what they wanted it to be because there was no space to have the building equipment. So Shanghai has a longer roller coaster attached to their mine train. The mine scenes are the same.
Okay.
But you have more roller coaster leading up to it, more roller coaster after it, and not to spoil it, you do not have the same ending scene.
Yeah.
As you do in Florida.
I will say that the witch does not make an appearance in this.
I was going to say, you could just spoil this one. Because then...
Okay. The car doesn't... Yeah, you just get, like, little woodland creatures showing up and
that
stuff.
Sucks.
But the cars do rock significantly more, and the ride is faster. So that's kind of neat. I will say... I guess as a quick little side note, but the Florida version was actually supposed to have more scenes in and out of the mine, but they couldn't put the crane in, so they couldn't get the I-beams in, so they can build the show buildings. Like it was supposed to be more like Calico Mine Train Ride at Knott's Berry Farm,
right? Yeah,
or more you go in and out, in and out. They didn't do that with this one, but they made the roller coaster part longer. So there's that.
It's worth. It had like 100-minute wait. I would not say it was worth 100 minutes. Like the Florida one is always 100-minute wait. But if you can fast pass it, and they had fast passes available till at least after lunchtime, it is worth going on.
So now in front of the castle, they have a different area called Gardens of Imagination. And that's where they have the Dumbo ride, which, the Dumbo ride is the Dumbo ride. It has Dumbo is Dumbo is Dumbo is Dumbo.
I will say this one has probably the best view because you're right in front of the castle on Dumbo. So rather than being tucked back somewhere in Fantasyland, it is right front and center, right in front of the castle. So it's a neat view.
Yeah, I'm saying this as I'm staring at my wife's wall of Dumbo. She collects Dumbo merchandise. So, yeah, guess what ride we're always going on. So they do have a really neat carousel theme to Fantasia. And they have an area called the Marvel Universe, which is like a temporary permanent attraction, meaning it's a permanent building, but like they could change that to something else if they need to. It's like a meet and greet area.
Okay.
And it was very strange meeting Captain America in Shanghai, who he was portrayed by an American. And of course, I greeted Captain America the only way that you do, which is a hearty Hail Hydra. So, It's like, I just want to Hail Hydra. It's like, dude, is that really what you're coming at me with right now?
I think Captain America was thrilled. He had a great conversation, probably with the first people he'd seen all day who could speak English.
Right.
All the girls though that are like high school and college age girls that we saw online were fawning and grabbing his muscles. Like, if you are a single American dude, just stand next to Captain America and be like, I'm Captain America's sidekick, and you are going to go and get yourself a wife. Because these girls were like, when I say that they are into Captain America, they are into Captain America.
Some of them were just staring at him, and they were done with the photo and they couldn't leave because they were just staring at him.
Now, keep in mind, he's like this 6'4" strapping buff guy, and everybody there is like 5'3" and 120 pounds. So this guy is like monstrous.
We also met a very Chinese-sounding Spider-Man in front of the New York skyline. That was really cool. He clearly he spoke to us in English. It was not his first language, but he did a good job for Spider-Man in a mask.
They also do have Mickey's house there, and that's kind of, you meet Mickey there. Now, next to that is, I think it's the last area I need to go over with you, which is Tomorrowland, where they have a far superior version of the Buzz Lightyear ride. Huh. You can actually see what you're shooting at. Like, it's more laser sight based, so you can aim a little bit better.
And it also takes a part of Toy Story Midway Mania in that one person in the car is shooting green and one person is shooting red. And as you or someone else hits the different targets, they do light up green or red to indicate one team hit them. So you kind of have that little end of Toy Story Mania with the competition, but still more on the Buzz Lightyear side, but a much more superior version than any of the other ones we've been on.
Yeah. They have another weird ride called the Jetpacks, which we weren't really expecting much, and it's kind of their version of the rockets.
Right.
And this is like, you have your feet dangling, and I will say, you're kind of sitting like it's an inverted roller coaster, kind of like one where your feet are dangling and you're kind of strapped in. This thing whips you around as you go up and down. It's very quick. It is a high thrill ride for being a Dumbo-like spinner. Not much more to say about it, except it does light up with the last ride that we need to talk about, which is the Tron Light Cycle Power Run.
Oh, very excited.
Okay, this was a very, very... You are on this ride incredibly awkwardly.
Oh, okay. You're on the light cycle, right?
You're on the light cycle, and I will say this thing, it's blasting Daft Punk when you're in the line. And it is intimidating. You see the thing, you sit down, God, I'm trying to think of what I compare it to.
The one at Knott's.
Okay, Knott's Berry Farm, if you're familiar with the Pony Express ride.
No, I'm not. Is that a weird sitting situation, right?
Yeah, yes. It's a weird sitting thing where you have to kneel into the car, and you put your hands at the very front like you're on a power cycle, and then the back part actually comes down and encloses you from behind.
Yeah, I'm looking at these pictures. This looks terrifying.
And it launches you. It launches you while you're in this thing.
For the record, I, in my 5'9", 135 pounds, did not feel like I was securely in this ride vehicle. I thought I could easily have slidden out. I don't think I could have, but that didn't stop me from feeling that way every time we went on this.
And I mean, the outside of this building lights up and goes into different styles with the music, and when the fireworks are happening at night, this thing is matching the lights. The whole Tomorrowland section, all the buildings light up and synchronized. And you go out part of this Tron ride. The first part is you're entering the grid, so you are outside for this. You're covered it's enclosed, and that's nice because when it rains in Shanghai, it really does rain really hard. So this thing can operate in the rain because you don't hit any rain. But you enter in a building kind of similar to Rock and Roller Coaster, except there's more screens, and it's like you're racing the other team. You're playing the game of Tron, and you see like the yellow team going after you, and you're ultimately trying to knock it down. Now the ride, of course, is predetermined. Of course you win because you're the hero and yay Disney. And
you're the only actual team that exists. The yellow team is on a screen.
It's on a screen. But being in this park like being in this position was so intense. It's unlike anything I had, and there was a point where I actually it's almost it's a weird feeling of feeling claustrophobic, but yet not feeling like you're in it at the same time. You feel claustrophobic, but then I need more surrounding me. I'm sure it was tested with all weights and stuff. It's awesome. We did this a few times. Ironically, this was a really easy one to get a fast pass for throughout the day. We actually did it a couple times throughout the day, just saying, well, let's get another fast pass and ride Tron. They do have the touch locker system. They make sure that there is nothing in your wallet or nothing in your pockets, nothing on your person.
That did not stop us from watching someone try to selfie the ride.
Oh, yeah, and then people took the phone away from them and said, you get it at the very end.
Yeah, I would like to make one point about Shanghai Disney. I kind of think we live in a vain society in which we take a lot of selfies and photos.
Sure.
We are nothing compared to Shanghai. Oh my. I can't convey to you how many people have 150 selfies of themselves waiting in line for the carousel with strange tall American man making faces behind them.
Oh yeah, I decided eventually I was just going to start photobombing them. And people eventually started taking photos with me because it was like, well, here's a 6'2", 240-pound American guy. Let's go and get him in these photos. But people, my wife took more photos than she can count, but no selfies really. But here people are just taking selfies left and right. It's almost like it's a new toy to them. So I don't know what they're...
I don't know what they post them on. They have no Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. I'm wondering, I think they have a Chinese version of such.
Yeah, I'm sure there has to be something.
People were taking 50 different selfies of themselves in line for Dumbo. Not in front of Dumbo, not with the castle behind them, just of themselves standing in line. Every angle you can imagine, and we were just fascinated by this.
They're making a animation, like Flipbook.
Yeah, now, anyway, the only other, I will say Downtown Disney there is really awesome. They, the Downtown Disney store, the actual Disney store that's in Downtown Disney, is a wonder. It's giant. It's fully animated. They have posters of attractions past of Disneyland and Disney Paris, things that aren't there any longer.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea there was a big poster of that, and it would have a little caption in Chinese and English that said, "This ride was in Disneyland from this date to this date."
Oh, wow.
Is now this, turned into Finding Nemo, things like that. So it had a little history about the other Disney parks because if you don't know about them, more than that, just that they exist, you can kind of see what exists elsewhere.
It was feeding the member berries,
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember this? You remember that? Well, for them, they probably don't.
They don't remember,
anyway,
yeah.
The other thing that we did there, we decided to see the Lion King all Mandarin production, which was the Broadway show, and the whole thing is in Mandarin. It does start with the same way. You can't really change the whole Hakuna Matata or that whole beginning, that that beginning, that's all still in
as is
English. But I will say that people did not know how to act during a Broadway show. You saw people having full conversations, letting their kids run up and down the aisles. texting, playing games, letting their phones ring.
I caught many small children. We were in the front row of the balcony section. I caught many children flying down that ramp about to go head over the balcony, and their parents were holding phone conversations, behind us. And the poor cast members were really trying to wrangle children. That's not their job. That's not, I think the girl who had our section might have been 18, probably just out of high school. She was chasing kids, running up and down the rows after people's children. That was not her job. She couldn't keep up.
And physically grabbing the kids and giving them back to their parents, and eventually you just see the resentment and the resignation of the parents don't care.
Oh yeah, she was picking up kids who were running and which one's your parent, and putting them back.
So, but ultimately, I will say I think Shanghai Disney is a great, great park. I think the locals just need to figure out how to behave in this setting and how to act. And I don't know what the opening crowds of Disneyland were like, if people were unruly because they weren't used to this kind of thing. And if this is standard, but I do know that they're definitely trying to enforce this, and it would be really nice to ultimately go there in 6 or 7, 8 years or however many years and see people just treating it like it's a Disney park and maybe not having so many armed officers standing all over the place.
Wow.
So, other than Disney, I will say it did rain really hard, so we were supposed to go to some crazy dinosaur park where they had creepy rides, but it was storming, so we didn't get to that. But we did go to their wild animal park. Nothing really creepy there, but if you get there, their petting zoo is a lemur petting zoo, and they do have spots where you can hold baby tigers for $5. So just saying, they go into a giant tiger safari vehicle area, so the tigers are all staying on property as opposed to the horror stories you hear about, don't touch a baby tiger here because it goes into some shooting area. It doesn't do that.
No, they're
well taken care of.
What they're doing by having people handle them is getting them ready to go into the preserve they have. So that way, as vehicles come through, they're not going to be as afraid. If a vet has to come in, they're not going to be as defensive. They want these animals to know humans because their life is a preserve cat.
Yeah, you go into this preserve and there's 75 tigers there. So, there's not really anything creepy. But what we did do, and this is weird, I read about this park called Happy Valley.
Okay.
And this is the last thing that I feel like I actually need to talk to you about.
Okay.
We said, okay, well, we're going to go to this. And we went after the zoo. And the zoo is close to where Disney is. And Disney's on one side of Shanghai. And Happy Valley is about 2 hours away from there. And we spent way more time at the zoo. And by the time we got to Happy Valley, it was 3:30. And this is an area where we had, this is not an area where people travel and tourists. We were walking down the street and people were looking at us like they had never seen a white person before. We kind of got that kind of treatment and that kind of vibe. And nobody spoke any English. And we see this place called Happy Valley, and it's kind of misty and it's kind of weird weather.
It's not raining yet, but it's misty, drizzly. That night we were going to have some storms, but they hadn't quite rolled in all the way.
And they signaled to me that the park was actually closed until about 5 o'clock or 5:30. And they said if you wait and you buy your ticket, then you get in for about $20 in US dollars. So we had to figure out a way to kill time, and we ate at this weird restaurant where they had stuff on sticks, like cuttlefish and squid. And they looked at me like, why is this guy eating this food? And I tried to signal that I wanted paper towels to wipe my hands. The guy reaches into his pocket and pulls out toilet paper and hands it to me. And it's oh, great, thanks. Now,
wow.
I will say at this point, everywhere, I forgot to mention this, the big thing that they have there are things called squatty potties. where they are not Western-style toilets like you're used to. They are pits in the ground that are made of porcelain, and you grab your toilet paper before you go to the bathroom, and you have to squat over this thing and hope you brought enough toilet paper. This comes in for a little bit I have to mention later, but...
Little travel advice. Carry some extra toilet paper with you just in case.
Wow.
And if the squatty potty is not your forte or you have horrible balance, find a handicap stall. The handicap stalls are Western toilets because they're equipped for wheelchairs.
So, I'm just saying is, like, the people have toilet paper on them. So eventually we get into this place called Happy Valley, and we realize that we had unintentionally stumbled onto their version of Halloween Horror Nights.
Ooh.
So,
Whoops.
we didn't know really what to expect because, A, we lined up, and because it was a Thursday and the weather was kind of weird, I would say there were no more than 300 people waiting to get in. I will also say that we were the only people that were of any other color other than clearly from Shanghai. On top of that, I'm 33. My wife just turned 30. We were the oldest people there.
Wow.
Waiting to get in. So we stuck out like sore thumbs.
He actually at one point said to me, well, I jokingly say this, but this time I mean it. If you lose me, I'll be the only white guy.
I'll be the only person over 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
So you walk through, like we walked through here, and we're like trying to figure out what these haunted houses are like.
Before you go to the haunted houses, I just want to interject one thing. This park advertised, and unfortunately due to, I'm going to say, poor attendance, and they were saying weather, the roller coasters were closed. They advertised that they had really unique roller coasters, so Grant was really excited. And we get to the train station, and I can see Happy Valley in the distance, and I go, look, honey, Shikra, Gwazi. They have really unique roller coasters, unless you live in Florida and live by Busch Gardens. They have Busch Gardens Tampa's roller coasters in their park.
Same exact layout, same setup.
Same paint job.
So, yeah, you can tell they were made by the same manufacturer around the same time. Like, just they sold it to this park as well. Why build one if you can make two?
Right.
And I'm sure they're really unique for everybody who's ever been there. And we were probably the only people who have ever looked at that and gone, oh, it's the roller coasters from Busch Gardens.
Probably.
So, anyway, we're walking down the street, and, like, they have their version of, like, haunted scare actors, and they're more intrigued by the fact that there are Americans walking here. So they're all coming up to us, and they're saying hello or hi and smiling because what the heck? They're like, you know what? I know 2 words of English, and, by golly, I'm going to use them.
Right.
Someone said, like, good morning. I think they were just proud they knew 2 words of English. It's like 7 o'clock at night.
So, like...
They knew English, and we were English, and they could say something, and they were just more mesmerized.
So they had this one called, like, the Haunted Jailhouse, and Brittany does not do haunts. So she's like, you know what? I'm going to wait right here, but I know you probably are dying to figure out what the heck a Chinese haunt is like.
Yeah.
And it's weird. There are scare actors, but they're not really being scary. You're walking through, and people are actually handling and picking up the props. Like, imagine going to, like, Halloween Horror Nights and just going, there's a gory brain off to the side. Pick this thing up and walk around with it for a moment. The people are just, like, picking it up and, like, throwing it into a different corner.
Wow.
And they're not, like, scary. They were just, like, really bizarre. Like, I'm walking through it. It was like a Twilight Zone. And people are, like, hanging on to me. And I was actually deciding, okay, I'm going to get on the fun and find little high school Chinese girls and sneak up behind them and scare them in the haunted house. So I had a lot of fun with that. So my wife heard a lot of screaming from the outside, and it was because of me.
Yeah. I said, that one must be really scary. I heard all these girls screaming. And he's like, I jumped up behind them and said, boo. And I was like, oh, I could hear that from out
Yeah,
here.
it takes like nothing to scare them. And, you know, you're walking through this whole park and it's set up like a Six Flags. And, like, nothing was really running, so we didn't really go on any rides. But it was...
did that scary
we did some weird, like, almost like a teacups type ride, like themed to like scary clowns or something, but like nothing really to write home about. But you know, they had about 6 or 7 haunts, but they had one that I really wanted to talk about, which was a virtual reality haunt. And I'm like, okay, what is this? They brought me into this dark room, and there was a wheelchair there, and they said they were signaling that I had to sit down on the wheelchair, and they put a virtual reality helmet on my head. As I'm watching this, they tied me into the wheelchair.
Wow.
Okay, so at this point, I'm terrified because this is weird, because I don't know what's allowed there. Like, are they allowed to touch me? Are they allowed to be aggressive? What are they going to do?
Yeah.
And in this video, you're going down this asylum in a wheelchair, and there's this girl, like, coming out of the ring with a knife, and she's, like, stabbing herself in the eye, and then she's dangling it in front of your eye, and then at your stomach, and then she starts stabbing you in the stomach. Fortunately, the people running this decided it wasn't a good idea to, like, start touching me then during that time, because I think I actually would have lost it. This was probably the scariest I've ever been. And this was like a 6 or 7 minute experience, which cultivated in the wheelchair, like, going headfirst into a puddle of blood that became a swimming pool of blood, with the girl from the ring coming up and ultimately opening her mouth really wide and swallowing me. And then that was it. But it was so bizarre. And, like, we're walking through this, and it's just, like, none of the rides are really operating. So it's like you're walking through a closed amusement park in China that's oddly familiar because it's some of the same rides that you see at Busch Gardens, but oddly different at the same time, with mist and scare actors that aren't really scary. And the last haunt that I did was called The Western Haunted House. And it said Western America Haunted House. And these teenagers were like looking at me like, why are you here? I said, I'm Western American Haunted House. And they kind of got that. They got that I was making a joke. And we were greeted with really poor representations of Native American culture straight out of the John Wayne movie.
Wow.
Like, coming at us. And then you entered the bathroom scene and they had squatty potties. I am like, there are no squatty potties in America. This is not a thing. So we were, you know, so that was kind of it. I mean, it wasn't really scary. We were only there for, I think, a grand total of an hour and 40 minutes because there wasn't much to do. And I did all the haunts and there were no lines for anything. But
the water ride, you almost put.
Yeah, we almost unintentionally went on like this giant like version of like tidal wave through a cannery, but we decided against it because it leaves you completely soaked and it was already kind of cold and chilly. But yeah.
Their water ride goes through a cannery where they can food. That's their water ride. And Grant's like, oh, this will be fun. And I'm like, I don't think this is a good idea. So we go to the bridge to watch it, and the drop is taller than Splash Mountain. It's probably 2 Splash Mountains high.
Wow, it's pretty high.
And I'm like, yeah, and we've seen this boat go in, and the boat is taking like 10 minutes to come out. I'm like, I don't think this is a good idea. This is probably not a good idea. And the boat comes down, and the splash goes up to the top of the building. And Grant looks at me and goes, and we're not going to go on that. So we probably would have drowned on that ride. I'm pretty sure the splash there, that's probably 100 foot down the ramp, 100-foot splash. Very intimidating. I am really curious. They spent about 10 minutes in a Chinese cannery.
What happens in the cannery? But I wasn't going to risk hypothermia to find out.
Was not worth it. Was not that curious. I'm pretty sure no video exists because any and all cameras would have probably been destroyed in the flood.
I'll probably look for that after. But, we did several other things in Shanghai because we were there a few extra days, but nothing that really pertains to your show. But I will say, Shanghai is ultimately worth going to, very much so. Just be prepared for aggression and knowing that you will be bruised. And I will say Happy Valley, if you can go during the day and you've never been to Busch Gardens, seems like it looked like it was a really fun park. It looked like a blast. It's just we happened to go during a very bizarre event unintentionally. So that was kind of fun from the story standpoint of.
And if you're an American, some of the Chinese kids might mistake you for a really well made up scare actor, which happened to me on more than one occasion. And I don't know if it was, this is day 19 of our trip, and I'm really tired.
Started looking a little scary, huh?
The rain. Or they just didn't expect that there would be an American there, but a couple people thought I was a scare actor while I was just sitting out on a bench waiting for him to get out of a haunt. So I got mistaken for a scare actor in China. That's kind of neat.
So anyway, that's pretty much it for Shanghai.
Oh, one last thing before we leave all this stuff, which I realized I was thinking about this as you're explaining all this Halloween activities at Happy Valley. Was there anything Halloween at Shanghai Disneyland?
Oh, yeah. Wow. I can't believe we didn't even talk about that. And we've spent a grand total of 5 hours talking with you over all these parks. I'm sorry, listeners, because I know I have a terrible voice, but, Anyway, they were kind of getting into the spirit. What they had, it was in downtown Disney. They have Halloween festivals going on. Halloween is not very big in China yet. Some pockets are still trying to explore them. But they were doing a Friday, Saturday, Sunday through a weekend free event where you can get your photos with characters in Halloween costumes. If you can make your way to their downtown Disney without paying for admission into Disneyland, you could do it. And it was just a separate little event that they had outside of the park in one little nook. We didn't see any of it as we were not there any of those days, but we saw where it was. We also understood that they were basically just trying to get this park up and running. Right. So the fact that they were able to do just a little bit for it was at least, hey, they're trying.
It was explained to us in advance that they don't celebrate Halloween in China. But as people in China are seeing a lot more Western culture, it's starting to come in. The merchandise, they had merchandise in Shanghai. There was one pin. It was a Mickey-shaped pumpkin. And there was a Mickey and Minnie plush that were probably about 9 inches tall, about that size plush, a very generic holiday Mickey, Halloween Mickey and Minnie. That's all they really did for merchandise. I think they had a shirt, and I believe it was actually a kids' sizes only shirt.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, it was in a lot of the different stores you could buy the stuff, but it wasn't advertised. There weren't pumpkins all over the place like you see in the American parks. There wasn't a parade like in Hong Kong or Tokyo. It was very minimal. It's my understanding that they're trying to gradually introduce it. My guess, because they did the Disney Town Halloween Carnival, which was in their downtown Disney area.
Okay.
They're probably going to do this in Disney Town for a couple years. Once it becomes a bigger thing, they'll probably put it into the park to boost parks, ticket sales, but to kind of introduce
Halloween, and then also it's a free activity that if you just said, hey, I'm getting off on this bus station or on this train station, we can still go and meet Mickey Mouse wearing a Halloween costume, get used to it, and hey, it would be cool if we got in there. It's kind of a nice way of easing people into it. But considering that they were only open for 4 months at that point, seeing the fact that they made any attempt to do anything Halloween was kind of nice because, you can't really expect them to go all out and decorate after get the park up and running. But, it was small, but we didn't really experience that. it would have been nice, but I get that they were only doing it on the weekend.
Yeah, and that Friday night, we were in Shanghai for Friday night. We were at Happy Valley, which was...
No, that was on Thursday night.
Is that Thursday night?
But Friday night, it was
Friday
raining
was
so
raining,
it was
yeah.
raining so hard because we had actually talked about potentially going there to check it out. So I don't even know if it even happened that Friday night because it was thunderstorming.
Yeah, we went to the world's largest Disney store instead. But yeah, they did have some acknowledgement of it. I feel that's going to be something in the future they're going to work on more, but it's not a very widespread thing in China yet. The fact that we went to Happy Valley and found Halloween Horror Nights was extremely surprising because we didn't expect them to have anything.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe eventually you can get there and kind of experience all this, and hopefully with the help of Patreon supporters and people like that.
Oh, you mean me personally? Yeah.
I think you should get over there because I think you would have a totally different bent on things as well.
All right, I found...
Maybe you can go during Valentine's Day and find one with romantic things. Maybe it would have the opposite of Creepy Kingdom.
All right, I found what they do for... I found an article about it. They had Mickey and Minnie in costumes, and they had jack-o'-lantern carving demonstrations and face painting and introductions to authentic Halloween traditions, including, in quotes, trick-or-treating at selected Disney Town stores.
Wow, they don't know nothing about Halloween over there.
Yeah, they were. It sounds like they were teaching the younger generation how to trick-or-treat. They had a DJ playing upbeat music with enchanting Halloween lights.
Oh, also, Downtown Disney, they kept playing the music from, like, the original version of Pete's Dragon. So apparently that's a big thing out there. That was kind of odd hearing Candle on the Water. I was like, wow, we're getting Helen ready right now.
They don't know what they're doing over there.
They found some soundtracks and said, no one will know what this is. Play it.
Well, and it's happy music, so it's
Yeah.
good. But, you know, I will say it's definitely worth going to. I think in a few years, once they figure it out, it's going to be even better. But, you know, if you somehow manage to get out there, or anybody listening said, you know, I'm planning on going there in the next year or two, be excited for it. Just be prepared, you know, and maybe watch like Spartacus or Gladiator beforehand and get into that, like, you know, on my command, unleash hell. I actually said that when leaving a subway on a busy one after she got trampled on one. I was like, okay, on my command, unleash hell, because we have to get out of this thing.
Yeah, it rained. I guess there was like a really bad storm over Japan the last couple days we were in China, but we were far enough away, but we had some of the outer bands. So I was carrying an umbrella, so I totally had the umbrella out, and I'm like, I will Mary Poppins, everybody, pop this thing open and get myself off this train. So by the end of it, I had a system. It wasn't a good one, but it was going to get me off
But
the
yeah,
train.
there are other awesome theme parks in Shanghai that we were planning on going to, but the thunderstorms just blocked us from going. And we learned about more later that were just a few hours. And now that, you know, I think next time we go to China, we will explore a little bit more outside of the comfort zone now that we're kind of used to that. And maybe since we've knocked out a couple of things that we don't need to do again, you know?
Like, you don't need to go back to Happy Valley, basically.
I know we don't need to go back to Happy Valley. I think we're good there. But we would go to the dinosaur park, and we'd probably go to Chimlong, which is its own thing. I'm not even going to explain. It's a giant, crazy mishmash theme park. So you can look that up on your own. I have no idea even how to explain it. But, you know, I will say it's been a pleasure being on here for these last few episodes, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate you guys coming on and sharing the story. I specifically wanted to wait till we recorded so you guys to tell me about it because I know you're chomping at the bit to share some of these adventures with me. But I was like, no, you're gonna tell me and everyone else that listens to the show. So.
Yeah, and if you ever have me on again, I actually am going to issue you a little challenge right now.
Okay.
Out in public, that you still haven't watched what I consider to be the creepiest Disney movie of all time. And I want you to watch that and get back to me on that one.
Right, and that is the brave little toaster.
the brave little toaster. I know what you're thinking. This is not going to be a scary movie. There's, like if you look at the cover, it looks very happy. I don't want you to watch one frame of this or Google anything. Just say, I'm going to watch the brave little toaster, and then get back to me, and I think you're going to have a new champion for the creepiest film.
Okay. I will take your word for it, and at some point, I will watch it, and we will have a show about it at some point. I can't
All
say
right.
that. All righty. Well, it's late where I am, so I know it's late where you are because you're on the East Coast.
Okay.
I'm on
It's
the
only
West.
3 a.m.
But thank you so much for sharing these adventures, and who knows? I think for me personally, I feel like this is gonna happen for me one day, and I kind of hoped for it before you guys went on your trip, but now I feel like, all right, this could happen. This could happen.
You can do the
about
whole
it.
thing for 2 people for under $5,000 from California.
So there's the financial aspect. Then there's like to mentally prepare myself for the challenges that you guys went through. I gotta.
We speak no Japanese and no Chinese, and we
Yeah.
survived.
Right, and we're already planning our next trip back to Tokyo. So
Wow.
we will be back there in under 2 years. We already have that inked in.
You guys are nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if you ever went there, you would completely understand, and you'd say you'd be nuts to not try to get there more often.
Wow. All right. I will hold you to that. No, but you're just going to Tokyo. You're not going to other parks?
Oh yeah, no, because we still need to explore the rest of Japan. Like we didn't really get to do Mount Fuji. We didn't do Mount Fuji. Apparently, there's a Spain-themed theme park out there, and there's a restaurant in the Sticks where monkeys are your waiters. So
What?
so there's stuff out there that we didn't have enough time when we're doing this. And also, now that we know how comfortable traveling in Tokyo and Japan is, I totally feel more comfortable figuring out my way around there versus China. I would still say stick to the major cities.
Right, yeah. Yeah, Japan's a place I've always wanted to visit independent of Disneyland, so I can understand that.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, it's doable for anybody, or at least you can easily just do Tokyo. If you felt so inclined on a cheap flight, you could do it for under $1,500 for one person easily. Just Tokyo, there and back.
Well, there you have it, folks. You've inspired a lot of people, I'm sure, to make the trip.
Well, good. Well, thank you for having us on.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for sharing your story, and I'm sure we'll be hearing from you guys at some point.
All right.